Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff I Never Told You, production of iHeartRadio.
And welcome to another edition of Feminists Around the World. And as May is AAPI, Asian American Pacific Islander History Month. And I know there's other acronyms for this, so I will pull that up, but that's the most commonly used as of today. And we are talking surfers. Yeah, writers and surfers, as well as the surfing community of Hawaii. Same little caveat here, as per usual, we're doing our best in getting the translations and pronunciations correct. If you're a native Hawaiian and wants to weigh in and tell us what we need to correct, please do. But yes, mispronunciations are not going to stop us. We'd love call-ins, but we also love talking about our peoples and different peoples and cultures. So, all that good stuff. But Anney, I have to ask, do you know how to surf? Have you ever gone surfing?
I have gone surfing.
Ooh.
Surfing, and everyone who knows how to surf is going to roll their eyes when I say this. Surfing is very difficult.
Yeah.
It is extremely difficult. Like, it looks like the smallest wave. Like, I could do that. But the way you have to push yourself up on the board requires a lot of arm strength and coordination.
Yeah.
So I would never say I can surf. I can say I have done it.
Okay.
And I mostly fell off on what I would call kiddie waves. But it was very difficult. It was extremely difficult.
I'm sure. I've just watched it from TV shows. Essentially, I've seen a few people surf, obviously, but I don't live on the West Coast, and the wave scene in the East Coast is not huge. We know this. People still do. The people do things, but I always watch surfers in awe because the amount of strength, core strength and leg strength and arm strength, you just needed to have it all. And I'm not coordinated either. I can barely stand up in general.
I mean,
on
I'm
solid
agreeing
ground.
with you, not judging you.
But no, I'm just saying. So I haven't I don't think there's a point that I will ever try because I'm absolutely one of those, I will look silly. So I'm not even going to try to put myself through that humiliation. But I love watching it, and I think it's an incredible sport. So we definitely wanted to talk about it. And yeah, we're going to talk about some of the history and women who are advocating for others within the sport, specifically, again, in Hawaii. Just to let you know, this is kind of a two-parter. Not exactly. I'm not making a series.
Okay.
I'm just going to talk about a few of the people behind the scenes, few of the people who are talking about the history of it and how women have been involved for a while. And just bringing attention to it again. As per usual, this comes from people publishing books and new documentaries that are coming out, which is cool. That, again, Anney, go ahead and get your notepad out because we're going to have to put this on the list because I do really want to read this book. I think it's going to be really interesting, as well as some of the documentary that's been released in the last couple of years showing fierce young women coming out into the sport and really making headway. So, cool. And we're going to start with writer, journalist, and surfer Mindy Pennybacker. Pennybacker grew up in the south of Oahu, surfing like many of the other kids in the area. But as a young girl, she received a lot of backlash and pushback from some of the other boys that she surfed with. Many who would only make fun of her or harass her, but often would even steal her waves to assert their dominance over her. Very, very tricky. I've seen this in movies.
Yeah, that's true. You're right. It's a popular thing in movies.
Real silly saying that. Fortunately, she was mentored by a surf legend, Alfred Rabbit Kakai, who coached her and so many others, even coaching women who would go on to become national champions in surfing. In an interview with surfer.com, she said, "Rabbit would tell me what to do. Tongs was thronged with kids in the late 60s, and he was the only adult who seemed to care about us. He would be coaching Heidi Hemmings, the younger sister of champion Fred Hemmings, or Evie Black, who became a national champion, but also he would teach the rest of us etiquette and how to surf respectfully, tell us, okay, now it's so-and-so's turn, and talking about how to surf correctly and politely."
Yes, not stealing the waves.
Not stealing those waves.
Right. And with people like that, her love for surfing and her community grew, but she always understood that the discrimination and sexism within the surf culture was toxic and exists even today. And after she returned to Hawaii, she started writing for the Honolulu Star-Advertiser. And there she spoke up about the surf culture, including encounters and surf etiquette within the community. In the same surfer.com interview, she talked about her work for the column, and she said, quote, "Over the years, a lot of women and men contacted me about the column, wanting to hear more about surf etiquette, the environment, gender equity in competition, and just being a regular woman who surfs and feeling dismissed and excluded by men who drop in, snake us, threaten, and sometimes assault us in the waves, as in the shocking incident in Bali in April when a man punched Sarah Taylor in the back of the head, forcing her underwater. I found that the sexism that we face in the waves is really a microcosm of what we experience on land in our daily lives. One fellow, a friend of my brother's, a good surfer and self-proclaimed Lothario, got really irate at my descriptions of how men outflex women, paddle around, and try to intimidate us. A couple of times he followed my husband down supermarket aisles and in parking lots, yelling at him to, quote, make Mindy stop.
And this column soon grew into its own book. In 2023, Pennybacker released Surfing Sisterhood Hawaii, Wahine, Reclaiming the Waves. And here's a bit of a descriptor from the HonoluluMagazine.com. Quote, in Surfing Sisterhood Hawaii, Pennybacker shares stories from more than 30 current female Hawaii surfers and more than 100 striking photos and illustrations. It's the first collection of women in surfing actually written by a woman, Pennybacker says. She interviewed girls, busy mothers, and big wave changers and discussed several pivotal events in the past 5 years that depict the evolution of, quote, surf culture through a female lens. And it quotes her saying, the book is called Reclaiming the Waves because I learned that women did originally surf with equal rights to men in Hawaii, which I hadn't known at all. After the 20th century, men dominated because surfing became commodified and commercialized.
In her interview with Surfer.com, Pennybacker talks about the history and legend of Hawaiian surfing. She said, quote, in the Hawaiian origin myths, Pele and her sister Hiaka, the goddess of fire and the goddess of hula, they both surfed. Hula and surfing go together in traditional culture, and many of the women I interview in the book do both. In legend and reality, women surfed as equals as men. I was shocked to learn this while researching my book because modern men had rewritten the history of surfing to favor themselves. In a legend that predates Westerners' arrival and was later written down by Samuel Kamakau, there was the surfer Kelea from Maui, and she just lived to surf. All she did was surf, and she was beautiful, and her surfing talent was known all throughout the islands. So this chief of Oahu was looking for a spouse, and he sent his guys in a boat to go kidnap her. She had to live with him inland on Oahu, and she was totally miserable.
And she continues in the article, she had 4 children with him, and she had never been to the coast on Oahu, but she could see it from the saddle where they're up there at the junction between Ko'olau and Waiini mountain ranges. Finally, she said, I just want to go and see the seashore. Her husband looked at her and he knew he wouldn't see her again, Kamakau writes. But he let her go, escorted by some of his people, and she never came back. She went to Waikiki, borrowed a board, surfed so well, and the king of Waikiki ended up marrying her. She just loved to surf so much, more than her husband. She's so human to me. It's touching that her husband knew she was never coming back, but he didn't try to keep her. Seems like she had taught him something about love. And the article continues, women traditionally enjoyed and asserted complete equality with men in the waves, as demonstrated by surf partners and spouses Queen Kahahumanu and King Kamehameha. Hawaiian women and men continued to surf throughout the 19th and early 20th century, despite the taking of their lands, illegal overthrow of their government, depletion of food and natural resources, and a loss of half their population to introduced disease. But in the mid-20th century, women were pushed aside by men because surfing became lucrative. It was utilized by shorefront counties all over the world to promote tourism and sell merchandise from surfwear to cars, and men seized the opportunity.
And with the history, Pennybacker has been outspoken about women being a part of the surfing world. In a fluxhawaii.com article, they post Pennybacker's book where she writes, I began writing a newspaper column on surfing, which grew into my book, Surfing Sisterhood Hawaii, Wahine, Reclaiming the Waves. I have been happy to see more females in the lineup than when I was a girl, but alarmed to witness far more overt gender-based intimidation and insulting dismissive behavior from males. A booming sport since the mid-20th century, surfing, even in its everyday, supposedly fun form, has gotten exponentially more crowded and competitive, which stokes some men's frustration and aggression. Worldwide, as of 2016, there were an estimated 33 million surfers, with males outnumbering females by males 4-1, according to the International Surfing Association. But in Hawaii, the average ratio that I and other women observe is more like 8-1. Meanwhile, competitive surfing allots places to half as many females as male contestants, from amateur Keiki events to the elite big wave and world championship pro tours. To date, only surfing's Olympic debut in the 2020 Tokyo Summer Games, where Hawaii Krisa Kainani Moore won gold, has fielded equal numbers of women and men. Hawaii's women surfers are reclaiming our traditional rights in the waves and joining their colleagues worldwide in shredding male chauvinist myths that we can't execute advanced maneuvers, such as getting tubed or exploding into the air above the tops of the waves, or ride big waves as well as men. When I was a little girl, I was told that women can't surf, Kauai native Keela Kenley said in 2016. And I was told this about getting barreled, surfing big waves, surfing pipeline, paddling in at Jaws, and the list goes on. She had just become the first woman to win the Open Gender Pure Scott Barrel of the Year Big Wave Award.
And that was just a bit from her book. And with all of that, Pennybacker told Surfer.com she does see a need for change within the industry, but still wants to make sure people enjoy the nature of the sport. She says, when it comes down to it, I think we have to keep speaking up. We shouldn't be afraid to keep speaking up, but we should always remember that surfing well with a smile is the best revenge. If some guy thinks that a girl can't surf well and they cut them off, then we just show them different and we laugh. Surfing is supposed to be fun for men and women. I don't want us to lose touch with that. So yeah, I think we definitely need to put her book on our list because it sounds fascinating. I want to see all these pictures. And yes, and we are going to come back to highlight some of the native Hawaiian surfers next week. So if you have any suggestions that you think we should put on the list to talk about, go ahead and send us that because we are still working on that list. I have about 4.
Yeah. And if any of you listeners are surfers, that would be cool to hear from you. Let us know. Mm-hmm. Yes, you can email us at stuffyamomstuff@iheartmedia.com. You can find us on Twitter at Momstuff Podcast or on TikTok and Instagram at Stuff I Never Told You. We have a YouTube. You can go there as well. We have a TeePublic store and we have a book you can get wherever you get your books. Thanks, as always, to our super producer, Christina, our executive producer, Maya, and our contributor, Joey.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for listening. Stuff I Never Told You is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, you can check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.